Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Tenpenny Files. I'm your host, Dr. Sherri Tenpenny. Here on the Tenpenny Files, we dive into vital and often controversial information to have discussions on topics that will challenge what you've been told and reveal what's been hidden. These compelling conversations will make you think, spark debate, and hopefully inspire you into action. Join me here every day, Monday through Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern, to hear from authors and documentary filmmakers that have something important to say and have often been silenced or censored. Today's conversation is with my guest, private investigator and author Susan Daniels, to talk about her book, The Rubbish Hauler's Wife versus Barack Obama. Susan, welcome so much to the Tenpenny Files. Thank you so much for joining me here today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Well, this book that you wrote is a true story. And so set the stage by telling the audience about your background as the rubbish hauler's wife.
Well, the name came from the fact that my husband actually was a rubbish hauler, and he was murdered by a Cleveland gangster named Danny Green when I was 30 years old. He was 37 at the time. And I had seven children, ages 10 to 14 months, and was left with a terrible mess. He left me terribly in debt because I had signed everything that he needed me to sign for his business. He had just bought another company, and it turned out I was $980,000 in debt. And when his board of directors told me that, I just laughed because I didn't have $980, and I thought, okay, let's see where this all goes. But anyhow, somehow the board was able to pay off our $56,000 to IRS. And then that was it. And then the lawyers kept it because he died without a will, kept it in probate court for 7.5 years, at which time they were all getting paid and I wasn't.
Well, that's pretty amazing. How did you uncover the use of Barack Obama's stolen Connecticut Social Security number? I mean, that is like earth-shattering news that everybody should
Yeah.
know about.
If people would have paid attention to it, he would have, I don't know if he would have been thrown out of his first term, but he would definitely never have been reelected. I, at the age of 52, I got a job at working for a private investigator. In a couple of years, I got my own license, started my own company. And in 2009, a client hired me to look into the background of Barack Obama. And I did. And on one of the databases I had, I immediately found that he had a phony number. I knew how Social Security numbers were assigned at that point, and they were assigned by the residence you put on your application. Uh, and that's where they sent the Social Security cards and information to. Well, his showed up with a Connecticut number, and I immediately knew that that was wrong because it said it had been issued in 1977. And at that time, he was in Hawaii, and he had claimed in his book that at 15 he had worked at Baskin Robbins, which means he would have had to have a Hawaiian Social Security number, which would have started at 575 or 576. And here I pull up a number that's 042 is the starting three numbers. I instantly knew it was wrong, and that was the starting point for me to do the background on him.
So, Susan, how did you find that Social Security number that began with, I think you said a zero? How did you find that?
I have proprietary databases that I'm allowed to use because I'm licensed by the state of Ohio. And normal people could not access these databases. And ironically, I just did an investigation into the background of Ilhan Omar, and the database I used just suspended me permanently because they said I wasn't supposed to look into government officials.
Oh my goodness. So tell
Isn't that
people,
interesting?
That's very interesting. When refresh my memory of when you published this book, because obviously you were looking at government officials at that point in time.
Yeah, it was 2012. And apparently, when I found it in 2009, he wasn't well known enough that the database didn't catch me.
Was the
Fortunately,
social security number you found, was it on a tax return, or where
no,
did
no,
you?
no, but someone then eventually sent me a copy of a tax return from 2009 that he had filed. And somebody had made the same mistake that they made with the phony birth certificate, and they had not flattened it. And it showed the social security number on it. That's one of the things that I have included in my book is a copy of the page from his tax return.
So do you think this was an error, or how did this I'm really curious of how this whole thing happened, that how did he end up with a social security number from Connecticut?
Well, he did it because they were trying to hide his past. They didn't want people to know where he had gone or what he had been doing. He was very tight already with the CIA, who had been were known to be around Occidental in 1980, recruiting people like him. And they had to change his number. Yeah. He didn't start using the Connecticut number till he was 26 years old.
So when he became president, did he have an Ohio social security, or I'm sorry, a Hawaii social security number?
No, it was always Connecticut from the time he was 26 on.
Oh my goodness. How did he get one of those?
Illegally. How did he get a phony birth certificate? Somebody made it for him.
My goodness. What did you do when you found this information? Did you try to
Well,
inform others?
I tried to, I'm also a paralegal, and I knew that I could not do anything myself with that number. But I knew if I could find a lawyer that had an ongoing lawsuit with him, and over the course of time, 400 lawsuits were filed against his eligibility, and everyone was thrown out on standing in court. And I went online to see if I could find anybody, and I found a woman in California that had a lawsuit, and I contacted her and gave her the number. No one had it previously before I found it. And she, to my astonishment, and still wonder what she was thinking, she published the entire number online. And then it's like, okay, it's out there now, so nothing's going to stop me now. So if it's been all over, I can use it too. I started doing a lot of interviews with people. The first one was with WorldNet Daily, and I contacted them and I said, I got this social security number Obama's using, and it's a phony. And as soon as I gave them the name of somebody who had then uh, looked it up after I did, and they confirmed, well, there's two independent people who've seen it, must be right. And of course, it was right, as we then saw in the 2009 tax return. But this is the part that is so disturbing to me that I can't get across to people. Because he was using an illegitimate number as president, every single thing he did was illegal. Every law he signed, every appointment he made, every military action, everything he did. And some of those laws are still in effect, and they're still illegal. And people don't understand the importance of that.
Well, dig into that for us. Tell us the importance of that, because it sounds extremely important to me.
Well, it is. I mean, I can't think of a specific one, but what if he said, for instance, something about only certain children could go to a certain school? Like I know he came out very strong about DEI and about backgrounds and pushing things for black children. and limiting their ability to do things that white children were then not allowed to. If those things are still in effect, they're still illegal. They were illegal when he signed them.
Have you tried to get this information to the Trump administration?
I got it to the Trump administration in 2012. When I filed a lawsuit in 2012 against the Ohio State Secretary of State, John Husted, and it was a 28 page, it was an 18-page complaint and then 83 pages of documents proving what I said in the complaint. That I was right, that he was using a phony number. And Houston was required by law to invest any complaints ever about anyone who was running for office. He did not do that on his own, but if he got a complaint, he was required to. He never did it. And now, to my chagrin, he was named to replace J.D. Vance, his open Senate seat. So now I'm looking for somebody I absolutely cannot stand because Houston never responded to the lawsuit. The judge here in Geauga County dismissed it within 3 days, claiming that I was wrong about the improper use of a Social Security number, and it just disappeared. Well, I sent this off. I was in touch with Michael Cohen, who was Trump's attorney then, and I told him what I had done, and he said, please send the lawsuit, which I did, and nothing. I mean, Trump has known now for 13 years that Obama is using and continues to use a stolen Social Security number.
Did he get where did he get this social security number? Did he get it from a dead person or how did he
Oh,
get
no, CIA would have just given him one. Somebody would have arbitrarily picked it. It would have been a dead person. It was a dead person because the person it was originally signed to was born in 1890. Now, people say, how is this possible that somebody born in 1890 got a Social Security number in 1977? And I can tell you very easily, uh, Social Security numbers were not even issued until 1936. The law was passed in 35. It went into effect in 36. Um, at that time, most women did not work outside of the house. So if their husbands eventually ended up with a Social Security number, and at first it was not mandatory. It was only mandatory if you worked for a company with 15 employees or more, but eventually they made it that everybody had to have one. So a lot of these older women who never had a job just used their husband's Social Security number. Well, I have a file for a different woman who was born in 1894 with a letter in it asking the Social Security number to give her own because her husband had recently died and it was no use to her. What I suspect is the woman that was born in 1890 at the age of 87 needed something from the government, like health care or some kind of financial aid or something, but she had to have her own number and was given it to her. And she probably only, might have lived a couple of years longer than that. Now, this is what is really fascinating. I had been in touch with a woman in Connecticut because a lot of people got in touch with me immediately. They wanted to help because they knew what a fraud Obama was from the start. This woman on her own, she said, "Is there any way I can find it?" I said, "Well, sometimes they put it on a death certificate. Not always, but sometimes the number is on a death certificate." This woman on her own looked through 18,000 death certificates trying to find that number. Well, unfortunately, she didn't. But then she asked me if I wanted her to start doing surrounding states. And I said, no, you've really done way more than I ever expected. And thank you very much. And bless your heart.
So I'm surprised when you've talked to people like WorldNet Daily and other types of podcasters and television and interviews that there wasn't anybody that picked up this story and investigated it and turned it and led it forward.
Well, the truth is, Jack Cashel, who has now become one of my really good friends, contacted me in 2011. And he just called me out of the blue and he said, I'm looking for, Susan Daniels. And I said, that would be me. And he said, are you the one that found the social security number? And I said, I am. And he said, well, everybody who has asked me about it, he said, all roads lead to you. Is this actually true? And I said, not only is it true, I'll send you whatever you need to convince you. And he then wrote probably several dozen articles about it. And he said if Romney had picked up on it, Romney would have beat Obama. But everybody was afraid to touch it. And I think it was probably because of race then. Well, right now, Obama is, he has no value to anyone. And nobody cares now about, they're not afraid to go after him.
Well, since they're not afraid to go after him, is anybody pursuing him? Because
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm like I said, I write on Substack usually weekly, and I have done probably a couple of dozen stories about different facets of his life, about the different things he's done that were illegal. And I'm getting quite a number of readers, quite a few, and then they're passing it on.
well, it is very important because there are, there's a lot of people that say, I don't know that anybody that has the facts, but a lot of people that claim and are saying that, the Biden administration was Obama's fifth term. And I think that a lot of things that were happening with the auto pen and all the discussion about all that that's coming up right now, reflecting back on the Obama administration, I think that your story is as important now as ever.
It is I think it's more important now than originally, because originally it was like, oh, here's another conspiracy theorist. And I could prove from the first day, I'm licensed. I can't take a chance on losing my license or I lose my ability to work. And I would never have printed anything that I couldn't prove, and have done it from the start. Now, I think it's really important. I agree with you. I think Biden's first term was Obama's third term. And I think that it's only a miracle the way they screwed things up so badly and put Kamala Harris in there. See, it was supposed to be Michelle Obama taking Biden's place. But Biden, because he disliked the Obama so much, because he wanted to run in 2016, because he disliked the Obama so much that he got even. I don't think it was Joe's idea because I don't think he's that smart. But when he came out and he knew that Obama had pushed him out of as the candidate, he immediately then came out and endorsed Kamala Harris. And that just cut the Obamas off at the knees. There was nothing they could do because it was a black woman. How they could not go back and attack her. But it was supposed to be Michelle was supposed to be the candidate.
There was a lot of talk about that. There's a friend of yours who's written a book, done a documentary about Michelle Obama 2025 or
Joel,
2024. Joel, what was his
Joel
name?
Gilbert. Yeah.
That's right, Joel Gilbert. And I had him on my past shows. And but nothing really came of it. She never even threw her hat in the ring. Why do you suppose that was?
Well, she see with Obama or Biden hurt them just by a couple of days because what they were trying to do was set up some kind of mini convention. They didn't want to look like it was arranged who was going to take over. The whole plan was for Michelle Obama to get in there for the next 8 years. You'll see that Michelle Obama, she came out once to stump for Kamala Harris, but she would not come out. I mean, it took the Obamas 3 days to support her. And then Obama came out a couple of times to rallies of hers, but he's not really well met anymore. And in fact, Democrats don't even want him around because they consider him bad luck.
Oh, wow. Bad luck. That's
Yeah,
that's interesting. So what have you learned about Washington, D.C.'s uniparty when you challenged the highest levels of government power and nothing ever came of it?
the whole thing discourages me. I have seen, yes, there, and I realized that early on there was a uniparty. And you know what? The uniparty is still at play. If you watch the patterns of behavior, if you pay attention to the things people say, um, it's highly suspicious that there's anything independent going on. Um, I was a big supporter of Donald Trump, voted for him 3 times. And there's some things about him that make me really uncomfortable. I think that him appointing Pam Bondi and Kash Patel, while my hopes were so high for them to begin with, they've been a complete zero as far as I'm concerned, as has Kristi Noem. Now, on the other hand, I think Marco Rubio has been spectacular as Secretary of State. I think Bissett has been tremendous. I think Lutnick has been tremendous. Everybody else except Patel, Noam, and Bondi have been really, really good. And what bothers me is Trump knows that Bondi is not doing a good job. In fact, I saw a couple of stories where there was a suggestion that her and Patel were going to be replaced, but they haven't been. And as long as they haven't been, it makes me very suspicious of maybe people want things to continue the way they are. There was one of the things that really sticks in my head is, you'll probably remember this, about 6 months ago, Trump said, we need an audit of Fort Knox for the gold. Well, there's was not only gold in Fort Knox, but there was gold at West Point and I think two or three other places in the country. And we never heard another word about that. And I think it's because there is no gold in Fort Knox. I had read an article maybe 10 or 15 years ago, and it said that the rumor was that they had taken in England had taken tungsten bars, which weighed exactly the same amount as gold bars, and covered them with gold and had replaced the gold in our country with them. And I have seen nothing to change my mind along those lines. I want to know what's holding up the audit of Fort Knox. That's very important.
Yeah, I remember that was part of all the stuff that Elon was doing with Doge, was
Yep.
all the things that he was ripping out from the roots, and then it just sort of stopped.
Uh,
And
and it was, I think he was doing too much. And at some point, I think Elon Musk's ego got away with him or away from him. He started to forget that he was not the president. Now, if they had left him alone, and I think he's back now, and maybe we'll see something, but they started uncovering a lot of things, and the best thing they did was shut down U.S. aid because I think that's where all the money was being transferred to all these NGOs, and I think all the money that I mean was supporting our enemies. I mean the money was coming circular, but through U.S. aid,
yeah,
which by the way was the CIA front.
Oh, wow. You know about that too?
Oh, yeah. So is the Ford Foundation. Obama's mother worked for both of those in Indonesia when she was working for the CIA.
Wow, there's more to this story that we need to talk about and dig into. But right now, I think this is a good place to take a quick break. We're going to dig into more information that really incriminates Obama and should be taken to heart by the highest levels of government. So hold that thought. We're going to hear from our sponsors at AmericaOutloud.news. America Out Loud Talk Radio plays the Tenpenny Files on the iHeartRadio network daily, Monday through Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. You can also listen to the shows from AmericaOutloud.news through their media player anywhere in the world. Just log into AmericaOutloud.news and click onto any of your favorite shows. And if you've missed any of the great conversations that we've had on the Tenpenny Files, you can find them on Spotify, Pandora, Apple, TuneIn, iHeart Virtual Studio, and on my platform at drtenpenny.com and drtenpenny.substack.com. We also live stream them onto X and to Rumble. Because there are so many great books and documentaries and so little time to read and watch, this show is meant to maximize your time and jumpstart your interests into areas that perhaps you didn't know anything about, always wanted to explore, or really opened your mind to something brand new. We've got a great message coming from our sponsors. There'll only be a minute or so. Sit tight. We will be right back. We hope that you will support our sponsors because they keep us on the radio and they support AmericaOutloud.news. Zeolite is a detox spray. We work specifically with a company called Touchstone Essentials. They are an incredible company. We've been working with them now for several years. And zeolite is a mineral that goes through your body like a one-way basket. It will clean out heavy metals such as arsenic and mercury, aluminum, cadmium, and it hooks onto those metals from a one-way perspective. So once it's bound, it goes out through your urine or your stools and doesn't get redeposited in other places. Everybody needs to have a detox product in their life, and this one is so easy to use and it's so safe. You can take it when you're pregnant, you can take it when you're nursing, you can give it to little children, you can even give it to infants, and quite frankly, I give it to my dog. I actually put a little bit of the zeolite in his water because until we all stop living in a toxic world, we all need to get some of those extra toxicities out. The heavy metals, the persistent organic pollutants, the things that are floating through the air, the different things that we come in touch with in our environment. And we are a big fan of zeolite from Touchstone Essentials. We've been a big fan of their products for several years. Go to drtenpenny.com/detox to get your first bottle of zeolite spray for $50 off.
Well, only when the government bows to the people will America become great again. This is Malcolm Out Loud here. Join me in pushing back against censorship, my fellow Americans. Right at the top of AmericaOutloud.news are the words, many voices, one freedom, united in the First Amendment. Now is our time, my fellow Americans. AmericaOutloud.news, liberty and justice for all.
Welcome back, everyone. Today, we have a conversation with a private investigator and author, Susan Daniels, about her book, The Rubbish Hauler's Wife versus Barack Obama. Let me tell you a little bit more about today's guest. Susan Daniels authored The Rubbish Hauler's Wife versus Barack Obama, and she's licensed in Ohio as a private investigator and has been there for more than 30 years. She's also a paralegal. She holds a bachelor's and a master's degree in English from Cleveland State University and has been certified as a paralegal since 1977. Susan raised 7 children as a single parent after the murder of her husband, a rubbish hauler, by a Cleveland gangster named Danny Green. And her story and her investigative spots going backwards are just really amazing. You contend in your book that Obama did not kill Osama bin Laden, and that Osama bin Laden really died in 2001 of a kidney-related disease, and it was all political theater. And watching them in the room, watching the television, and all that stuff was all just made up. Tell us about that.
Well, Obama was in trouble in 2012. His poll numbers were terrible. So 2011, and he needed a big ta-da to get reelected in 2012. Well, I found I had previously seen an article it was in a French newspaper, Le Figaro, and it always also showed up in the Pakistani Observer and stuff, and it was about the death of Osama bin Laden. He died on December 16th, 2001, not in May 2011, like Obama said. Um, Bin Laden had been treated, this is hysterical. You know, the CIA was hunting and hunting and hunting for him. Bin Laden was treated in the American hospital in Dubai in July of 2001 for kidney disease. He was operated on by an American surgeon. I think his name was Terry Gallagher. He had been there previously and been operated on. He had he was very sick and had even had I forget what they're called, the machines to clean the blood. He had several of them. Yes, he had several of those. Um, and when he was in the hospital, now keep in mind that the CIA at this time had a $2 million reward for him. He was visited from somebody at the CIA in July of 2001, and they were trying to bring him back into the pack. Bin Laden had been on the CIA payroll from 1978 to 1998. And the CIA was hoping to get him to come back to them so that they would stop the wars between the Afghanis and America. And I mean, it was a total mess. They ran the guy from the CIA off because after he went there, I mean, he pretty much was told to get lost. He went back and bragged to people in Abu Dhabi, I mean, in Dubai, that's where the hospital was, in Dubai, that he had been there to the hospital, and he was immediately recalled to Langley. No surprise there. They knew where he was all along. He died he died. I saw the death certificate or the death notice in the paper, and it told that when he died, 30 people were there, you know, his close friends, his security guards. It named some other people. This is all in the book. And then he was buried in the Tora Bora Mountains then. Um, Obama, I don't know who dreamed this up, but George Bush and all of them kept up we have to find Obama. You know, he's the bad guy. And it was all a lie. And then Obama came up with this plan to assassinate him. Well, there was a SEAL attack. Several helicopters flew to this house in Abbottabad where they said bin Laden was. And the neighbors there said he was never there. I mean, there was a $5 million award for him. You think any of those poor people in Abbottabad wouldn't have pointed him out immediately if he had been there? They attacked one of the helicopters. The back of the helicopter hit the wall around this compound where bin Laden was supposed to be staying, and although it was never in the paper, several SEALs were killed. And then they all moved over to the other helicopter when they left, and they exploded the one that had been damaged. They then flew to the North Arabian Sea and to the USS Carl Vinson. And now this is what even got me looking at this whole thing, Dr. Tenpenny. Somebody said to me offhandedly, You know, my son-in-law was on that ship, the Carl Vinson. I said, really? And he said, they had all 5,000 sailors go below deck before the helicopters came. And right away I thought, why would they do that? You would think they'd want the biggest audience they could have. I was able to get from Judicial Watch the communications between CENTCOM and the ship while the helicopters were in process. And the people on the helicopters were very concerned about how many people witnessed this dumping the body into the ocean. And they were assured it was only 10 to 12 people. And they said, are you sure there were no sailors? And I said, no, there were no sailors. Uh, all of which seemed very odd to me. Well, a neighbor said they actually killed the owner of the house and took him. Now, I figured they wanted the sailors below deck because even in a body bag, oh, bin Laden was 6'4" and about 150 pounds. You could tell a body that size even in a body bag, too long and too narrow. Well, they dumped it, and while they were dumping him, the table that the body was on even went off into the ocean. Um, uh, Panetta in it was I think it was Panetta in a book that he later wrote. They said, well, we weren't 100, we were about 50% sure he was at that site. And Obama even later came out and said, well, nobody really saw him there. But we would see three men at night walking around. None of them was taller than the rest, but we were pretty sure he was there. They had no idea he was there because he wasn't there. He had already been dead for 10 years.
Right.
His security guards, bin Laden's security guards who never left his side, were seen in January and February out on their own. They would never have left his side had he been still alive. And he was never seen again after that. There were a couple of fuzzy videos that were shown that were supposed to be him, but in them he looked extremely ill. And in truth, he was never seen after December 2001.
And then we lost the entire SEAL Team 6 after that whole fiasco, and
Oh, yeah. Oh, and that was no accident either. That was 3 months later. There were, I think it was 32 or 33 people on a helicopter. They had no helicopters with them protecting them. Um, it was shot down. There were 23 SEALs on there, and 13 of them were SEAL Team 6. This was no accident. This was, I believe, Obama just showing the Muslims that I'm with you.
wow. And then the other interesting story that you tell about in your book is the mysterious death of Obama's chef.
Oh yeah, but more importantly, there was the odd death of his chef in Martha's Vineyard. That they said that he was found in 100 feet of water, 8 feet deep. They couldn't find him right away. There was a female with him who I always believed was Malia. And when she ran off to get the Secret Service, when he went under the water, which I don't understand because there were videos of him doing laps at an indoor pool. She ran off to the Secret Service and they couldn't get either of their boats to start.
Oh,
So
Matt.
oh yeah, now what a surprise. So the next morning they find him, they claim in 100 feet from shore and 3 feet of water. Well, somebody sent me a map of the estuary of that pond, and at 100 feet, the water was 3 feet deep. You had to go out 400 feet before it was 8 feet deep. And in an article I wrote for Substack, my last line was, all he had to do to save his life was sit up. You know, I encourage people to go to my Substack, which is susandaniels.substack.com. I have a ton of stories in there, including how Obama in 2008 tried to buy a Reverend Wright off for $150,000 so he wouldn't speak. Everybody knew that Obama had been at his church for 20 years, and he didn't want him out there saying things that would make his Obama's campaign look bad. So he tried to buy him off. Well, the Reverend Wright, not a fool, and probably remembering the execution of Obama's boyfriend uh, in December of 2007, who was the choir master at Reverend Wright's church, um, Reverend Wright decided to retire in 2008. And what is really interesting is he had built for him a 1.4 million house in a 98% white area. And he who absolutely hated the whites, but he wanted to live among them. And he also, from his church, got a $10 million line of credit. Now, I believe that this was more U.S. aid money because the house that was built, the $1 million house, was paid off in 4 years.
Wow, that's astonishing. That's it seems like every stone that gets turned over that has a story attached to it about Obama just comes into more crime and more deceitful sort of
Oh,
thing.
yeah. And the thing is, because my book was written in 2012, I have found a ton of stuff since then about him and about people surrounding him and there's a lot of interesting just I probably have 80 or 90 articles in Substack now. And I think I have like 2,700 regular followers. So these people are reading it. The one I just did one on Ilhan Omar, and I looked today, and almost 7,000 people have read it, which means everybody is sending it out to everybody else.
That's really, really interesting. Have you done any investigation or did you do any investigation into Obama's kids?
No, it's really no, it's really tough to do kids. All I know is they're both in California. They don't see very much of their parents, and they they have no Secret Service details.
Well, that's interesting. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
well, that's the rule. It was supposed to be Secret Service details for the presidents were supposed to stop after 10 years. And I don't know, was Bush or Obama or one of them have made it continue for life.
Have all of these Substack articles that you've written, are you going to compile them into another book?
I didn't think of it until about 2 days ago, and I thought, you know what, I really should do this because there is so much more for people to learn that unless they've read the stories. In fact, I started reposting some of the stories from a year ago when I only had 200 or 300 readers, and I thought, there's a lot of information that people don't know.
Well, I think it would be a great sequel to this wonderful book that you've written already, The Rubbish Hauler's Wife versus Barack Obama. Are you getting any attention to other podcasters and other broadcasters and investigators from all of the additional information that you put out on your Substack?
Not really. Um, not I did a podcast a couple of weeks ago, and I've done some with like Cliff Kincaid and some people that are fairly well known. Uh, but no, I'm not. And this is what bothers me is like, see, the people still don't understand how important it is that Obama was the fraud that he is. He's worth what, $140 million now, and they're trying to say that, oh, it's from sale of his books. And do the math. Writers will get maybe $7 or $8 a book. So divide that into 60 million, which was what he was given as a retainer. And what people don't understand about selling books is you get a retainer and you don't get another penny until you sell that many books. And then you'll get some, but they're trying to say that he's getting millions each year more from residuals, royalties from his books.
What do you think about the Obama library?
I think I love it. It's so hideous that I absolutely love it. I do not believe that it'll ever get finished. And I think it's the perfect symbol for Obama and the Obama administration. Half-assed done and ugly as sin.
That's really well put. And if people haven't seen a picture of it, go out and Google it and see what the Obama library looks like. It looks like a prison cell.
Oh, one of my Substack articles is about it. It's just hideous. And the neighbors around, first of all, they took Jackson Park, which was this beautiful park that for blacks, it was only one or two in the city that blacks had easy access to. There were ball diamonds, there were everything. It was beautiful. And they took it, they tore it up, 19 acres. And what they're doing now is now they're raising the rents of all the people that live in the area. I mean, what they're doing is they're chasing blacks out of the area because they built this monstrosity. There is a huge lawsuit pending. Obama insisted on 50% minority contractors. And one of the contractors, a concrete contractor, is now suing the general contractor from New York because of shoddy work. The general contractor showed pictures of the concrete work was already cracking and rebar was sticking through it.
Okay.
And the minority contractor was so offended by the attacks on him that he's suing the general contractor for $40 million. And while that is pending, I don't think there's any work going on. I mean, they say there is, but I don't believe there is because I also read they're out of money. It went from an original estimate of like $320 million for this. It's now up to $850 million.
Oh, and it looks like a prison,
It
or
does.
it looks like a corn silo, like
It
an
does.
corn silo. It is the ugliest thing ever.
And there's not going to be a single book in it.
What are they building it for then?
Everything's going to be digitalized. People will be able to go in there and look on computers at whatever they have selectively chosen for people to see.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and they put in a basketball court, and it's like, what, this is not a presidential library.
This is just a funneling of US government taxpayer money into
I suspect again, U.S. aid.
wow. Do you think that the Trump administration will ever change any of these people who've lied about and lied to him and are continuing to ignore all the great information that you've dug out and uncovered, Susan?
No, I wish I could say I had just a prayer that they would, but no, I don't think so.
What would you like to, if you could wave a magic wand and change things, what would you like to change first?
I would like to see the 51 people that signed that security letter arrested and then throw in everybody else we can think of. Because they're all corrupt, all crooked, and all deserve to be in jail. And then I think we should go after the Sedition Six. I think we ought to maybe the first thing we should do is handle Mark Kelly Maybe that would be the best example, reinstate him in the government and bring him to a court martial.
Well, there you go. What is your biggest takeaway from your book, Susan Daniels, on the rubbish hauler's wife? What do you want people, why do you want people to read it? And what do you want them to take away from the book?
I want them to see how totally corrupt the government is. I want them to realize that I was absolutely correct about Obama and his phony Social Security number, and that they allowed it to continue. I mean, I don't think anybody who has read the book does not believe it. I mean, they tried initially when I came out with the information, they tried to say, well, including Bill O'Reilly on his TV show. Somebody had sent in a question saying, well, what about Obama? And what's the story about the Connecticut number? And O'Reilly said, oh, well, his daddy lived in Connecticut and he probably, sometimes kids get their Social Security numbers through their parents. And it's like, Obama, I don't think ever visited Connecticut, let alone his father lived there. His father was in Massachusetts for a couple of years until they ran him off because he was such a low life. But everybody, the reasons they tried to attack me were so invalid that they were laughable, and they gave up. Nobody has tried to say I was wrong.
Well, maybe we ought to get you on Tucker and maybe on Candace Owens and all these different places to tell the story because it's so important to our country.
I know. I have tried. I have tried every access that I've known. I've tried every person I've known. Who do you know? Who can you help me, get to? And this has been going on now for 16 years.
Well, for any of the listeners who are listening to this today or in the future, if you know anybody in government or you know any big podcasters other than the one that we have here that could get Susan on to tell the story about the rubbish hauler's wife and Barack Obama, please be in contact with me and I'll get that information over to Susan. So with that, we need to close out for our time here today because this has just been an amazing conversation, unveiling things that are so critically important to the future of our country. And even though the book was written in 2012, it's more important today now than ever. So with that, I'm going to close out with one of my favorite verses from the Bible. You guys should know this one by now, that I close all of my podcasts with, whether it is live or pre-recorded, which is Romans 12:12. Rejoice in hope, be patient in trouble, and be persistent in prayer. Lean into God, trust him for everything. He will not let you down. We'll see you tomorrow or the next time at 3 p.m. Eastern, right here on AmericaOutloud.news and iHeartRadio. You can also listen anywhere in the world on their media player. You can see our favorite shows or our past shows on your favorite podcast platforms, or you can go to drtenpenny.com and watch any of our podcasts there. Please sign up for my Substack, which is drtenpenny.substack.com, and my Sunday Substack, which is tenpennywalkwithgod.substack.com, and follow Susan's Substack, which is susandaniels.substack.com, because she has great investigative stuff and she needs your support. You can also follow me on X and on Instagram at Busy Dr. T. So have a great day, everybody. We'll see you the next time. Goodbye and God bless.